Welcome to our second hour presentation. This is the Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group. This is November 9th, 2024. And our presenter is Marilyn Thomsen. Her class title is State Military Records Research. And this is really important. Sometimes people just look at the federal stuff and think that that's it, but there's oftentimes a lot more and a lot more personal stuff on the state level. So the description of this class is state archives may have your ancestors' military records. Local archives have databases and records not found in federal databases. This intermediate level class discusses the importance of being familiar with local county histories and records when researching your ancestors' military background. We welcome all those who are watching on Facebook and those who are on Zoom and those who will be watching this presentation later. Please put any questions you may have in the chat for Zoom, comments for Facebook, and Marilyn will be glad to answer those later. Thank you, and the time is yours, Marilyn.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to talk about state military records. Laurie and I were discussing about the fact is too often people don't understand how important they are. And so this is what we're going to cover is why you got to go to state record archives and websites to bookmark, and that service records are organized by periods and conflicts. And then we'll review some of the things you're going to find in these state records. Previously, I told you about how this ancestor, Hezekiah Hunt, I couldn't find him. I went through all of the federal guides, all the federal records at the Family History Library in Salt Lake. I was working up there. I could not find him, even though our family said that is his sword, that his cane was really a sword that he carried in the Civil War, and he was buried in his Confederate uniform, but then when I walked across the street to the State Archive in Morrow, they had Dovey's pension. And so again, I learned two things. I learned, first of all, that her last record was actually 1910. She died in 1907, but he was born in 1810. So there's a 100-year span there for records that I had to go to. So first of all, I want to talk about the importance of county histories. And county histories are coming online because of Google, because of Internet Archive, because of Family Search, and because Ancestry and MyHeritage. They are digitizing these books. And this is opening up an amazing ability to do research in such a faster, easier way, because you can search every word in there. You can, you have these little horrible, little densely printed county histories that you're trying to scan and your eyesight is blurring. And now all at once they are online. They are blowing up on your big screen. You can read them or you can search them, but they have valuable information that was collected and compiled for you, okay? So if you haven't learned how to use the Family Searches book, the digital library, do that to find these county histories. But not just county histories, look for military companies' histories, look for federal soldiers' histories. Those are things that will teach you about your ancestor and his experience with the military and your family's experience. Another thing to look for is Percy. Percy is at the Allen County County Library. They have these diligent little librarians who indexed all of the local histories that were published by historical societies, by genealogical societies, and put in keys. And so you can research let's say a military unit, you can research your ancestor's surname. You can research how to do military research in a certain county or in a state or that. They have all of these articles organized, and they are available, and that's another PowerPoint presentation that I love giving, but it is a source for local histories that you want to look at. This is the Internet Archive that was out recently because it was attacked, but it is back up. But this is an amazing site. If you haven't used it, learn how to use it. I'm going to show you right now. Tolliver County is where one of my ancestors had served, and so I put in Tolliver County, Georgia. And then next comes up, okay, oh, the book. This is the county, and it's free, and it's right here online. And then you open up that book, and this is what you'll see is a lottery of the children. Well, a lottery of land. I'm sorry. So in Georgia is what happened is the land, the legislatures were giving land out to their friends, and it was really a scandal. So they created this lottery where anyone that lived in Georgia could have a drawing to win land. And they would give more land to veterans. They would give more land to orphans. They would give more land to women who were abandoned by their husbands. And so this was so early, that these are the first censuses. And as you remember, before 1850, everyone wasn't named in a census. It was just the head of houses. And so this opens up a lot of people who are living with their fathers or their mothers and gives you information about them. So this is an important one. This shows you military districts. So when people with the same name, and you have, for example, we have an ancestor in my line, whose last name is Hancock. And so can you imagine how many John Hancocks there are in that family to research? And so to help separate your John Hancock from others, you need to look for the military district of the same name. It also helps with taxes, so you know where to look for their tax records by these militia districts. This is shows orphans. Orphans are not necessarily a person whose mother's died. It's just that their father or someone has died, and so they're orphan, but they would get privileges. So this is an example of the people named in this county history in one of those lotteries. And it shows who the people named in it could have served in the Revolutionary War as an RS. It shows where they're living. It shows that they got a draw, and if they got that draw and they won it, then it shows where you can then go to the archive and find out where that piece of land was given to, probably their children. And it's just a beautiful piece of information. Okay. This one shows, this is a widow named Lucy Hall. Okay, and so this is early census that is not a federal census. And it's a state record. So you need to make sure you go in and you find these type of records. Every state will have their own way to research, and they have military records, and you have to go local. Another important site is the Family Search Wiki for military records, and they have links to databases for each of the wars. Often colonial wars were neglected, but Family Search doesn't neglect the colonial wars. Even Ancestry.com focuses on the US wars. The reason colonial wars are so important is because this period of time there are so few records that survived, and people weren't literate, and then people had common names, and so going online, often these people were very carefully researched for county histories and the counties, and often you'll get a piece of information, you're going, where did that come from? If I find a person who is from this period of time and they say, oh yeah, they were born on this day, and they give the day, the month, the year, and they were born in this county, I'm saying, okay, that wouldn't come from a headstone from that period, because they didn't put that on the headstones very often unless they were a famous person. That had to have come from a military record. That's how important military records are for this period of time. But the colonial military records will be in the state archives, okay? Also, during the colonial wars, the Canadian provinces were involved in these colonial wars. And so, yeah, go across the border and research those records too. Oh, I need to correct my family search wiki military record. I'm seeing all these mistakes. I want to stop this whole thing and fix it. Okay, so many of these societies have historians who have written about your ancestor, have written about your family, or have written about the battle in which your family was involved in. And I still remember going to North Carolina. My husband kept saying, oh, they have a great display on the Civil War. And I said, no, Richard, mine were Revolutionary War. They weren't in that battle. But they had a lot of information for me there about that battle. And these battles have been talked about, and there are experiences of people who went through these battles. And those similar experiences are the similar experiences that your ancestor went through. So Family Search has a whole page on the War of 1812, okay? And so again, you're going to go into the state, okay, for the War of 1812. This is an early records, and look at their records. So they have compiled service records who served in 1812 from the territory of Missouri, okay? And even though this is a federal government, it is organized by state. Some states you'll have lots of records that accumulated because the battles and the soldiers were local people, and that kind of information would be there. Okay, this is again, Family Search is about the Civil War, and you'll click on there, it'll have links, it'll have information about the war. Now we're talking about the Civil War. The Civil War, you think of this as a federal, the United States, we see it as a federal one, but in reality, the Civil War was a state war, and each state gave out Confederate pensions if they had Confederate soldiers. That was not given by the federal. So those state pensions are more readily available often, and have been microfilmed by Family Search. And so that's, for example, Dovey, I had to go into the state pensions to be able to find her, to find out her husband's military records. But also, so that was an example of Georgia, but I want you to focus on, for example, Texas. So Texas did not care who you were. If you were Union or Confederate, they wanted to give you a land pension. They wanted that land settled. And so they have state land warrants that they gave out. Also, they had the Confederate Texas State Troopers, the Texas Rangers. And there are wonderful records about those soldiers and when they were, and there were pensions given to those soldiers. And so this is a little local wars that occurred. Utah had their little local Indian Black Hawk War. And if your ancestor was in Utah when that occurred, they probably got a pension. They probably got a medal. They probably have some information about where their unit was and what they did. So you need to go to the state records, okay? This is, there were veteran schedules in the 1890 census. These will be by the states, okay? And so I love Family Search because they have organized these military records by state. And you can go into the state, you're going to look for the military records for that state, or then you go down to the county, the military records for that county, and then you're going to go to the military records for associated collections. Another organization that you probably haven't done any research in is called the Grand Army of the Republic. And it was a veterans organization after the Civil War, okay? And these are the Union, and these groups were politically involved. They supported voting rights for Black veterans. They lobbied Congress. They worked hard to establish pensions. And they have posts, it's called. And the state of Texas, wow, they have great records. And they may even have a little history or a bio or an obituary of your ancestor in this organization, okay? So one of my favorite sites that I love to use is this one. It's called Online Military Indexes and Records, US. This website is maintained privately, okay, and he keeps the links up to date. That is one of my frustrations often with Family Search is they'll name a collection and you click on the link and it's dead. But he goes through quite regularly and updates the links. So I'm going to show you, when you go in there, you'll start at, it's organized, this one, the first one, you can see it's by the war. So let's say we're going to click on the War of 1812. Okay, so then at the top, then these are the War of 1812 that are by the federal government. Okay, and I love this because this link goes right into fold 3 to the free collection of pensions, this ongoing project that I mentioned in the prior thing. And then as you scroll down, then these are War of 1812 indexes and records by state. The muster rolls for the state militias, the local militias, these wars, these are local, okay? And so as we scroll down, you can see every state. There's Kentucky, there's Ohio. We're gonna blow up Ohio. So the Ohio Historical Society has a roster of Ohio soldiers, okay? Rosters of soldiers. They have an index to graves of soldiers that are buried in Ohio and tells where they are buried. And what I love about this site is it shows you where these indexes are. So, for example, I was telling you, I love Family Search because they have a thing, but this site says, well, this index is search, and it's at the archive, but it's also in ancestry.com. And so they have identified the duplicate connections to the same database, okay? This is, we scroll down, this shows you Arkansas, Civil War, how each of these states have their own collection for pensions, their own collection for filches, and Connecticut. Filches Home for Soldiers, Deceased Veterans Discharged, and then it links to that. It goes to the Connecticut Historical Society Library and shows you the Connecticut Civil War Manuscript Project and what they are doing. So this puts you into the feet on the ground portion. Okay, so what if you don't know the state archives or you want to link to the state archive? This is in your handout. This is Family History Daily. She has a link on her site that she keeps updating that links to state archives. And then once you find that archive, use your Control D to bookmark those websites because you're going to want to go back to them and find it later. So we're going to start going through examples of state archives and libraries that are online and some of the things that they have. We're going to start with Virginia. I love the Library of Virginia. They were some on the forefront in digitizing records, land records, all kinds of records. And they didn't send all of their records to the National Archive. They kept them local in their state archive. So these little soldiers would start out in their little local militia, and then they would go home. And then George Washington, they say, oh, rally the troops, we need them to come to the federal, and then they may be in the colonial records and the federal records. So you'll find people in both levels, okay? And then they would get different benefits. They would get a benefit from the Virginia, they would get land through Virginia, they would get federal bounty land, and they would get federal pensions. So that's an example. This is the State Archive of North Carolina. Again, you need to go in, look what they have. This is an example of a troop return where they have them listed, the troops, where they're serving, what they were issued, when they died, just little pieces of information, okay? This is North Carolina Archive. This collection of I think Ancestry has tied into this, and you may find it on Ancestry, but it's going to be free at the North Carolina Archive, okay? And so this is what a pay voucher is about. Instead of giving the soldiers money, they would give them a pay voucher. And it's like money in that they could spend it, or they could use it for taxes. And so that was kind of the government's idea that we don't have a lot of cash, and cash is hard, but if you could bring your voucher in, then you would be able to pay your taxes. So as a genealogist, why these are important is because they show where the soldier was and where he went. So for example, this soldier, he started out in September in Franklin, North Carolina. But then the next pay that occurred, so first August, then in September, he's in Halifax, North Carolina. So this documents when and where his family moved. This also helped me for the birthplaces of his children. They kind of had everybody born in Virginia. And I'm going, but wait, this soldier's not in Virginia, he's in North Carolina by this date. And so they provide residency as well as service. Okay, Pennsylvania State. This is an example of a database that they have created of veterans' cemeteries, their graves. And I don't know about you, but sometimes you go to a cemetery and there's not a headstone, or there's you're having trouble finding the thing, and they have gone through and created this database. It's a beautiful database that tells when the soldier was born. It tells when he enlisted. It tells when he was discharged. It gives his regiment, which will give you more information and more records and more histories and places for you to go. And there it is in a beautiful database that you can search that's at the State Library. Okay, this one is pensioners in Minnesota. Ironically, this is at the Allen County Public Library. Remember me talking about Percy and those diligent little librarians and volunteers who went through all of the historical society journals and created an index that created Percy. Well, this is another project that they have. They have gone through the War of 1812 for many states, and they have created databases for them. And so this is Minnesota, and there weren't a huge number, 132 pensioners. but they are enumerated. And so this little database will help you to locate that record and know what to look for. This is the Indiana University in Indianapolis. Again, this is pay receipts for the War of 1812, similar to what we talked about back in North Carolina. So those are all state records because they were paid for the little local militia. Important. Okay, this is Florida. We all want to retire to Florida, but this is really fun because they have a Confederate and soldiers and sailors home with, it's a huge collection that is valuable. If your family ended up in Florida, wow, check this out. This may be why they went to Florida. This may be one of the clues that you would want to be able to check out. Okay, this is Arkansas. Okay, these are Confederate veterans records that are part of the state collection again. Alabama, oh my goodness, count yourself blessed if you have family in Alabama, because the Alabama Department of Archives and History has one of the most beautiful collections I have seen. And many of these records have not been forwarded to the federal archives. Even Family Search went in and would start to microfilm collections, and Alabama say, oh no, we think we'll just keep this part or keep these records here. So you need to go to Alabama, and they have been digitizing records and putting them online, and it's a gold mine. They had genealogists who donated their collection of letters of researching people, so they have an all-name index. Ancestry recently picked that up, and you can use that index, but that comes from the Alabama State Archive. And you have to pay for Ancestry, but it's free in Alabama if you go to their archive, physically or even online. Missouri, digital history, soldier records of World War II through World War I. Do you remember how I mentioned in the prior thing that at the National Archive, the records were lost from World War II in a big fire, like 80% of the records. So when you go back into these state archives, remember those soldier groups that kept track of each other, and that there will be state records. They were discharged in their local state, their local county. And so this is Missouri's digital heritage that's online. Georgia archives. Oh, you guys, you have a treat in store of you if you have not gone to the Georgia archives. They have digitized land records. They have digitized tax records. They have digitized pension records. They have a beautiful collection of military records. Now I've gone into Family Search, okay, and this shows Family Search's military records, and but the state records might not have been sent to national, and county records might not have been turned into the state. And so even though you say, oh yeah, I searched the military records in Georgia, you may not. You may not have been able to know what is available in the Georgia State Archive that's available. This we have is Georgia's Confederate pension rolls. So this is through Family Search. A similar one is available on Ancestry. What will happen is you are given, this database was created from a book, and it's an index, and created from cards. And you say, oh, pat myself on the back, I found him in the Family Searches database, there he is, but where is the application? Okay, so it's just, their index is just an image of a book. It's not really the application. And we've talked about how those applications have secrets and little details. So now we're going to go to the Georgia archives. This is, they call it the virtual vault. And so this is that same pension I'm showing you. So this is that little cover sheet on that. Okay, and then we start reading and we get down into the details. We find out that she ended up marrying, when her husband died, she married the next door neighbor and filed a pension for him. And then when that next door neighbor died, she married again. Now, how do I know that? It's because the state archive has the originals and has that information in their pension applications. So I started with my ancestor and went on to find these other records in their collection. Okay, all right, so I think this is a duplicate of that. Okay, so this is a picture of the virtual vault, the originals of their pensions that were issued by the state or the county. So there were two levels. There's a little local militia that may have been paid a pension by the little local county, or it could be issued by state. Most of these, Georgia, I have to say, I'm grateful, has collected a lot of these and pulled them into their state archive, and they'll have the originals. Okay, these are the military units that were created. And I remember before I mentioned how even these for you to help identify an individual and separating from another individual. But there'll just be little teeny pieces of information in here that may help you. I know the little Georgia state, they did a census to see who could be drafted for the war. And in there I found out my ancestor owned a horse and a gun. Another site that I want to talk about is US GenWeb. And it's what this is about is little local people have gone through their local county records and they have put them online. Now, this isn't maintained very well anymore. Ancestry volunteered to host it, and then Ancestry didn't host it, and then it came back, and so some of the volunteers have stayed with it and some of them have died and moved on or whatever. However, their little indexes and their little databases are still up here, and I have come across some really sweet pieces of information at the US GenWeb. But you start by going in to the state, and then you go into the county. So I'm just going to show you how this works. This is the Indian War for Georgia. Okay, and so these are letters and treaties for the Indian War. These are Muscogee County resolution of the Indian Wars. This is a list of men that are drafted. Just little sweet pieces of information that you may not find anywhere else. This shows you the different wars and pieces of information. This page is Washington County, Georgia Military Company, my ancestor, the Company H 49 Regiment. And it's a list of all of the men from that county where they served. And it's a list that tells what happened to them. It may tell even who they married. They tell when they were born. And so let me just show you a little piece of information that came out of that from the GenWeb. George W. Rue enlisted. He's a private. He was elected junior lieutenant, a captain. He was wounded at the 2nd Manassas. He's captured at the Battle of the Wilderness in Virginia. He was held at Fort Pulaski, Georgia. Harold Head, South Carolina, Fort Delaware. George Washington Ruff was released at Fort Delaware. and then it tells where he was born, where he died, who he married, and then the source is Personal Letters, Family File of William M. Lockhart and Henderson. So again, if I had this little piece of information, then I would go into the photographs of the Civil War, to those battles, and see if there's a photograph of his unit. I would follow him along, and that's how I would put a little bit of history together. I have a picture that's similar to this of the place at the 2nd Manassas, Virginia, where the soldiers of Delaware County died. They were shot down. I think 80% of that town's soldiers, cousins, died at the same place at that battle. And they have a picture of it. And how valuable is that? Next, I want to talk about Cindy's list. This is, gotta fix that header, don't I? Okay, so Cindy goes around and just collects links to miscellaneous pieces of information and different things. And so she goes into the states and military, and this is Michigan. So she has links to cemeteries and funerals that are military funerals and military quartermaster records. She has burial sites for the 4th Michigan Volunteer Infantry who served our state during the Civil War. Okay. These are the categories. She breaks it down into Air Force, finding old comrades, how to do things. She has maps, military medals, military history and resources, Navy. She has links to those different sites. This is the ancestry.com. When you go in to ancestry.com, they have what they call their military collection, but that only does the federal records. If you go into their card catalog and look for a state military records, then you're going to see their links to all kinds of military records that aren't part of their military quote-unquote collection. It's under soldiers and veterans and prisoner roll category. So in here, for example, they have Pennsylvania veteran card file. They have disabled merchant seaman hospital records. They have Maine U.S. burial records. A lot of these collections will be back on that site that I told you, links to the military records. But I just want to mention, don't just stop at the one site, go on. Another thing I want to mention is cemetery symbols, okay? Right next to this headstone, there is what is called the Confederate honor, the name of it just slipped me, has a star. So anyway, these little things can designate their branch of service. So an eagle will be a high-ranking officer. Stars indicate ranks for the number of stars they have. Other symbols can represent, for example, anchor will designate the Navy, swords denote the Army, and they're just a silent salute to the deceased commitment and the military structuring. So be alert to those kind of things. Here is one, they have, you'll see that there were medals of valor, and that's on my father's headstone, okay? Another fun thing is when you're at a headstone, if there are coins placed there, they represent things. So for example, if it's a penny, then they knew the soldier. If it's a nickel, they have served with the soldier. If it's a quarter, then they were present when that soldier died. And it's just an honor, a way to honor the people, okay? These grave markers may have unit insignias, they have the ranks. A parachute could be or a cavalry could be cross sabers. They give a lot of information about the camaraderie and the battles of what these soldiers did, okay, and the sacrifices. So, like a gold star represents the family lost this person, a blue star replaced by a gold one. It means that the person died in service. A folded flag, so remember back here, there's a it's not folded, but there is the flag, okay? But a folded flag beside a gold star symbolizes the flag is given to next of kin during the military service. It's just a final salute to what they served, okay? All right, time-wise, I am getting close to the end. I've talked about this. This is a duplicate slide that I've thrown in twice because I should have hidden it. Okay. Each state and family search has a list of military symbols. And so that was what I was trying to get to. And so you need to check those out where they are. You go to Utah, they mentioned Fort Douglas. But there is also the national database. And that is and the web link in the military sites. And it names, you can search for a cemetery or you can search for individual names. And you'll be surprised. It's a real adventure to go into this national cemetery database and to find what these are. It also has a link if you want to apply for a military database. So this one, you go to a map. This is to find a cemetery, and I put in Utah, and then it came up that we have 2 military cemeteries. One of the things in the state that sometimes we forget about is the National Guard, and that is even still current. And the National Guard has histories that have been written about them. They have, because with the National Guard, these soldiers went through common events and that, then it is valuable for you to go in and find out what happened to them, what they experienced, what they saw. And so this one is the National Guard of Pennsylvania, okay? And so they have a whole collection of what their soldiers went through, okay? Next, I wanted to just mention Fold 3. Fold 3 will have some state records. See here we have U.S. Pennsylvania Revolutionary War Battalions and Militia Index. One of the things I want to stress about Fold 3 that is really valuable is it is more, they are starting to have an every name index. So for example, let's say your grandfather's brother signed the affidavit stating that he knew that his brother served in the military and therefore you should grant him a pension. Then you have that brother's name. But that brother's affidavit may contain some extra information. Recently I saw one where he said, and his son can no longer support him because his son is and so this is important why you should go ahead and give him a pension. Just precious little jewels or tidbits that may be in these pensions at Fold 3. This is again war pension payments. This is for the Indian Wars, and these are online. This is, this slide is out of order. This was after the cemetery index. This shows that we have the U.S. Hill Air Force Base in the Hutchinson Museum. I apologize. I needed to go through my slides again and I ran out of time. We have company arriving. There's never enough time. But I just wanted to mention that keep your curiosity alive because you're just going to have some wonderful adventures. Now, I wanted to ask if someone has questions or if you would like me to go ahead and go to any of these websites and view those.
Do we have, Jerry, do we have any questions from Facebook? I don't
Cur-
see it on,
Currently, we don't. Not from Facebook.
Not from Facebook. Okay. All right.
I did post your handouts for both classes on Facebook for you, so they're there.
Okay. Okay. We
did you, did you post the second? Oh yeah, there's the second one. Is that
I
right?
can repost it. Yeah. Oh, maybe I didn't. Let's see.
Okay. For those of us on Zoom, I don't know that that second one got posted.
Um,
So be sure and get that.
okay. We could
I
go
would
ahead.
like to just endorse the one you're showing right now, the online military records and index. That's Joe Bina,
Joe Bina. Yes.
and
I kept trying to remember his name and it
yeah,
didn't.
it's down there right at the very bottom, right there.
Yeah,
And
right, right.
I've
Yeah.
always loved him because he's German and he has a big page of Germans.
Oh, yes. Yes.
How you research your German ancestors. And anyway,
Yes.
it really is one of my favorite things to recommend are his websites on different facets of research. So
The depth and what he has that is available is just absolutely wonderful and amazing.
he's a really
I
nice guy too.
Oh, is he? I would like to meet him someday.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? He didn't have anything down for their. He's got a page where he literally lists places where you can go to find county histories online. He has a
Oh,
county,
he does.
and so I thought, oh, I'm going to see what he has for Utah. So I clicked on it, and it had almost nothing. And if you know anything about, well, Utah history is one of my specialties. So or Utah research. And so what happened was when we had this centennial of Utah in when was that? Like 19 was it it's in late nine was it at 1993 or something like that. Anyway, they went through state government went through and had people write a new history for each one of the counties.
Wow.
And for like 20 years, those were for sale. And then all of a sudden they put them all up online
Ah,
free of charge. And so I sent him the link to where those are available and other things on the um,
oh,
Utah,
yeah, yeah.
Utah State Historical Society website and all that. And he wrote me right back the very next day and goes, "Thank you. I've got that all posted." So
Got it posted that fast. Wow.
yeah. And so he's
So
usually has a link at the bottom of the page for if you want to
now I'm curious where that county history, where
the
it's,
pages.
I don't see it here. Okay, you must have had bookmarked it or
Um,
historical newspapers, online census, passenger lists, just so much that's there. I was just going to just tell a little story. I was researching a family. The individual disappeared during the time about where and I thought, well, I'll check the Mexican War, and we found a grundle of information about him serving in the Mexican War. Who knew we had a Mexican War, a war with Mexican back in 1846 to 1848? And so these are early pioneers that had arrived in Oregon. But what happened is we were able to see that his pension is what paid for the land for the family in Oregon. And that's why the family moved to Oregon, is because of this individual. And it brought up his service records, and it just helped to be able to the family to get back even to where their roots really were from. So and this is organized the same way. They have the United States, the beginning, and then if there are any archives that are state archives, then he has listed those also down there. So, and Indiana, from the Indiana Digital Archives. So, yeah, so many great resources. Well, thank you so much. I hope this has been a help to someone. I appreciate you listening. And I guess that's it.
well, thank you very much, Marilyn. And
Okay.
once again, I feel compelled to say, if you didn't see something in here that you haven't checked already, you weren't trying. So
There we go. There we go.
again.
That's right.
But
All right.
yeah, I've got some curiosity reestablished in certain areas that I hadn't thought about. So
Directions to go. Okay. I
thank
hope you find a photo and you share it with me or something like that. So I would love to hear about it.
I have some records I need to order too. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I ordered my father's, and I've never heard back from the National Archives. So
Well, what
yeah,
I've heard, about that whole fire, because that really impacts me too. My grandfather was in World War I
yeah,
and Army medical, and then my dad was in the Korean
yeah,
and his twin brother, and so I've got a number of family members that fall in the
that,
sad zone there where the fire happened in St. Louis. But I've heard that if you contact them and ask for the record and they can't find it, that there are other records that they will refer to and send you
ah,
copies of those.
see,
So, things that
I-
got filed in Washington instead, things that were just filed other places, and so we're not affected by the fire. So that's what I got to do is see what I can get.
right, they're trying to compensate for, well, they need to for themselves to compensate or
I
find.
tell you, when I first heard about that fire,
Yeah,
that
it
was
just,
yeah, it's hard news.
yeah, yeah.
Been able to reconstruct a lot of Jerry's father was in the Navy in World War II, and then in the Army post post his Navy career. And so we've been able to find a number of things about him. So that was kind of nice. Well, thank you so much, and we hope that all of you will tell your friends about the monthly meetings we have,
The newsletter has a wonderful article from Carol Hill talking about a pension. Yeah.
yeah, yes, and if we recommend joining our group, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are putting out, it's not really a newsletter anymore. It's more like a news magazine.
Oh, yeah. And Laurie's
News
links are
magazine. It's between 30
so
and 40
helpful.
pages and
Keeps me
uh,
current.
loaded with information.
Yeah.
We every month we have a what's new in genealogy and a genealogy technology update. We have
Are fantastic. Yeah.
all kinds of a list. Marilyn puts together a whole list of places where they have additional presentations available online or things you should know about. So, and we try to have a theme every month, but we also have extra things in there as well. And so we hope you will,
For $15.
$15 a year, you get one of these mags every month online. And we hope you'll check us out. If you'd like to have an example of that, you can
Hmm.
contact our email address and we'll mail you out a sample copy of one of our past month's newsletters so you can try it out and see how wonderful it is. And Marilyn is our editor, and I also think of her as the compositor because it's very nice looking and she's responsible for organization and the look of the
And
our production.
it's wonderful. It's a great people to be engaged with, and I just count on Lori and keeping me current. I know that failure of the Internet Archive was so devastating to me, and then to learn the story behind it all from Laurie, yeah, that was really helpful. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
you'll be able to, we'll have more on that in the January issue.
January issue, yeah.
We have, I should say at this point in time, we don't have a second Saturday meeting in
December.
December. We still put out the newsletter. And so the next time we'll see all of you is in January. Also, you can go to our what do we our YouTube
Yes.
And we have the other vice president,
Don's.
no, gives a class every month or every couple of months during the week. And those are all posted up there. You can go back to the back ones free of charge. So yeah, come and join us. We'd love to have you. Thank you so much, Marilyn, once again.
Thank you. All right.
Does anybody else have any last comments, questions?
Oh, let's see, chat.
I don't see.
Oh, yeah, Catherine Grant. What informative, helpful information. Love Catherine Grant. Oh, thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And are there
Okay.
anything from Facebook, Chair?
No, no further.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We'll sign off for now.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye.